Charleston, South Carolina for us. Thank you so much, Kate. And we want to take a closer look at the race, and for that we're joined by Conor O'Callaghan. He's a Democrat running for Congress in Arizona, and Bill McGinley, a former White House cabinet secretary under Donald Trump. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the debrief. Conor, I want to start with you. Black voters won the state for Biden in 2020, but as Kate Fisher just said, polls show he's been losing support among that group. Does the South Carolina vote represent the feelings of black voters around the country?
Well, Alexa, always good to be on with you. I don't think that it does. Look, this is a primary. You know, I know Dean Phillips is on the ballot. It's effectively an uncontested primary. Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee. Jim Clyburn went a long way towards making sure he was the nominee and the eventual president in 2020. And I think people are going to rally the troops once again. I know Jim is back out there making the same pitch that he did last time. There might be a little bit more apathy, a little bit more apprehension around Biden this time around. But again, it's a primary. Nobody's excited about the general election yet. And people might not be super excited to run out to the polls and vote for Biden in November, but they're going to do it out of necessity. Donald Trump fanned the flames of racism and brought bigotry back into the mainstream. People aren't going to forget that. They know that staying home is a vote for Trump, and they'll show up for Biden in November.
And Bill, question to you. How is former President Trump winning over and connecting with black voters?
I think he's improving his standing. If you look at the polls, he's actually made a lot of gains with African-American males and Hispanic voters. And one thing I would say in response to my colleague's statements, you know, presidential campaigns in these primaries, even if they are expected to be low turnout events, really should be testing their get out the vote operations. In South Carolina, given the demographics of the South Carolina Democratic primary voters, this is an important test for them. So I think people are going to be looking for a couple of data points at the end of tonight to judge whether President Biden's weaknesses do materialize on the ground, and that is going to be the total number of votes cast, whether they're able to energize their electorate to turn out, but also African Americans and other voting blocs that they need to try and turn out in November to win.
Now, Conor, to you, I want to turn this conversation to the escalating conflict in the Middle East. The U.S. lost soldiers in Jordan just 1 week ago, retaliating now for that attack. How could U.S. fighting in the Middle East impact Biden's support here at home from voters?
Well, as I said, Alexa, last week on your show, the world is really watching. You know, we have Iran watching to see what the U.S. is going to do. Russia's watching to see what the U.S. is going to do. China's watching to see what the U.S. is going to do. You know, the reality is we had 40 service members just from Arizona who were injured in those drone attacks in Jordan. So, you know, we have to respond. And I think it's actually going to help President Biden with voters. You know, again, the world's watching. We have to protect democracy here and everywhere. And we cannot let our troops be attacked and killed without repercussions. So, you know, there's no choice in the matter. And I think President Biden is handling the situation appropriately.
Yeah, the president saying what's happened in the last 24 hours, just the beginning of multiple responses. Now, Bill, question for you. How can Donald Trump and the GOP use the turmoil happening in the Middle East to his advantage during his campaign?
Well, you look at the former president's track record in the Middle East, it's really good. He was able to eliminate the caliphate of ISIS without starting a broader war, which was something that people said he couldn't do. He was able to contain Iran and laid down a red line and actually enforced it. But I don't think that you can take the Middle East in isolation. I think you also need to look at what's happening in Ukraine, but also the Chinese aggressive maneuvers in the South China Sea and toward Taiwan as well. All of these different international crises and situations that the White House needs to be handling are all interconnected. And right now, Americans are a little uneasy with how things are going and the lack of proactive plan of action to try and contain these crises so that we don't end up in a broader war, but also preserve our interests.
Yeah, the situation very delicate at the moment and certainly going to play a huge role in the upcoming general election. Conor O'Callaghan and Bill McGinley, thank you for joining us, and we hope to have you both back.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Alexa.
Well, coming up, the U.S. launched retaliatory strikes after 3 American lives were lost